Alright, another build update. Got this here transmission plate. And I've got this here snout support. I got the plate and the snout support from EC Distributing, or EC Carburetors, however they go about their name now. Basically, this plate is supposed to house a 700 transmission. That would bolt into here. The snout would go through here. This has to be welded to this plate. This is support for the snout. That support basically goes over like that. It's basically because they're having problems where you load this up, like let's say you just drop the clutch. It'll snap this off the case completely. This support welded to this steel bracket, all this thickness is a little over 1/4 inch, will protect this from snapping. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bolt this transmission to this plate so I can get this centered. Then I'm going to tack it into place, check it again, and then I'll completely weld it. And back here you can put a chain tensioner. They sell a chain tensioner. This is, all these holes are already tapped. So all you got to do to adjust it, whether you're at the track or whatever, you go from up top instead of having to undo a nut at the bottom and all that fun stuff. But this plate, I believe this plate is a 13x8. It's a bit wider than the mower chassis, but the plate they had, I think it was a 8x9 or 9x8. The other plate, it'd be way too small to put on there, and I'd have to add a bunch of other metal. At least this one, I can cut it down on either side to fit the length I need. They give you holes, 3 holes on each side, so you can just, if you wanted to, if you didn't have a welder, you can just bolt it to the frame. But this allows you, it's 1/4 inch thick. This allows you to weld it directly to the frame if you want. You can either weld it or you can bolt it. Okay, now we've got the transmission bolted to the transmission plate. I basically just got in mock bolted for now, and I pushed this collar all the way up against here flat. Now I know that's centered on this plate. I could go ahead and weld this plate, the collar, into the plate. Alright, well the plate's all welded in now. A little bit of slag on that. It's unusual for that welder. See, it's a little bit blues. We got decent heat into it, so it'll hold. But yep, the support bushing's already welded in. Now we can pull it all apart and start cleaning this up, work on something else. Alright, axle is in place. And the Sprocket Carrier, I just got to drill the hole through here when I unbolt to drill the hole through there to support the other bolt. Same thing on both sides. Alright, now the Sprocket Carrier I have, this is an EC Distributing Sprocket Carrier. It's about 26 bucks. It's all aluminum. Basically just clamps onto the axle, and you have a piece of key that goes in between there. Now what I'm doing now is, this is kind of just mocked in here. I have some collar locks in here, black collar locks to match the axle, just so the axle isn't shifting back and forth when I'm working on it. And from the bearing out, I have exactly 12 inches a foot. From the bearing out, exactly 12 inches to a foot. Yeah, I'm putting that in there. I'm going to pull these fenders off, and I'm going to check where I can put my transmission plate. So once I have that in there, I have the Sprocket Carrier, I can mount my transmission plate and my transmission in here, and I'll know exactly where my chain should line up on it. Alright, I've got the transmission plate just mocked on here for now. I've got to cut out about 1.5 inches on that side and about 2 inches on that side, so that way I can weld it to the main frame rails on it. So I'll go ahead and cut that, and then I'll mock it up again, clean it up, and do a full. Alright, I've gone ahead and squared everything up. I just tacked it in 4 places all the way around, so that way, and then I squared it up. I used to square, let's see if I can do it with with one hand. Maybe. Yeah, see, it's got weld on there now, but when I squared it up, there we go. Perfectly square across the chassis. The plate's in there square. If this plate ain't in there square, you're going to have all kinds of chain problems because it's trying to kick the chain off sideways. Now it's tacked in place. I'm going to go ahead and fully weld the plate in there. Alright, got the transmission plate all welded into place. Now I slip the transmission in there and then I'll start working on the front, bracing up the front end. Alright, got the transmission in place and I made this cool little shifter, little piston shifter. It moves and everything. I was going to use the actual connected rod, but I was trying to heat up the metal and forge the round tube into the connected rod, and I kind of cast a little bit of connected rod. So I just took a piece of steel, welded it on the inside. The plates welded inside, got the fenders back on, and I took a chunk out of the fenders to clear the transmission. I'll have to make a cover for the sprocket on that side. The front, I added gussets to the front to strengthen it up. So, got more to come. Got to go pick up some parts. Alright, now I've moved on to the steering. Went ahead, bent me a piece of straight steel that I cut off of the transmission bracket. 1/4 inch. I just tacked it to the Ackerman arm here. I bent it around again, bent it, and then I put a piece of laser cut steel on it with all the holes drilled in it, and I just tacked that into place right here. This tire isn't spaced out correctly, but there we go. But basically, that's going to be my pivot for my steering. Now this isn't done yet. This is all square and sharp and all that, and really thick. I'm going to have to clean all this up before it's completely done. Yeah, it goes, bolts in right there, swings around. Now the leverage, we're bringing it back here because it's in line with the spindle. It's exactly in line with the spindle. So if this is here straight, we line it up, it's exactly in line with the spindle. So with the tie rod and everything on there, move it to the left or the right. Same thing with the other side. Okay, now we're going to move on. I've got my engine pulley. It is a 8-inch. All this is a tractor supply. If I get it off here, it's a tractor supply pulley. There we go. It's tractor supply 8-inch pulley. There we go. 8-inch wide pulley. I just welded it on two sides. But it's an 8-inch steel pulley with a 1-inch hub. Here's the part number, if anyone needs it, with a 1-inch hub to fit the engine. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean all this up. I just took a paint marker and just made a couple marks. What I'm going to do is I'll take this pulley while this pulley's on here after all that's cleaned up, and I'm going to make me some easy peasy belt guides. And all I'm going to do is basically take a bolt and a nut, weld it, weld the nut, weld the nut, weld the nut, put the belt on it, and once the belt's on it, you screw the the bolt in, and that bolt will keep your belt inside your pulley. And it's quick at the track. All you do is take out 3 bolts, pull it out, the belt comes off. This keeps the belt from falling off when you're trying to run it. Alright, back to the drivetrain now. As you see, I have the pulley on there. I have 1 bolt, 2 bolt, 3 bolt. The nuts are welded to the chassis. Nuts are welded to the chassis, all 3 of them. And basically, what you do, get a wrench here. You come in here, if you need to change a belt, come in here and you break it loose, preferably a ratchet. It's a lot quicker. But you take the bolt out, pretend you take all the bolts out, swap your belt, and then, see the nuts just welded in there, and then take your bolt, run her back in. You ain't got to tighten them super tight, but just get a nice little 1/4 inch snug, and there you go. Your belt ain't going to come off this. If it does, your belt tries to come off, it's either going to break or bend this over, which I've only seen one time where a belt come off and it bend this completely over. But there it is, 1, 2, 3. And then on the transmission pan, when I get the transmission pulley, I'll do the same thing. Clean this up and do the exact same thing I did up here. That, and what I have left is I got to add a clutch within here. Clutch, and relocate this foot clutch probably a little bit farther towards the front of the mower, because I'm pretty tall. Move that, put an all new rod, and I got all new steel to make a new rod, Heim joint and all that. Alright, now my next part of this is I'm going to make a mount that'll mount the hood onto the mower. As you see, I've got a couple things I've got to clear, like the front tie rod. I have to clear that. But that's the motor. This is a mock-up motor. But this is the same type of motor that's going to go on here. I've got to make it. I'm sure the hood will fit the motor, no problem. But it'll be a bit of a challenge to get the hood to clear the tie rod and make it pivot, because I want the hood to flip forward, so that way I can get complete access to the motor. Alright, last part for the day. I've got the hood mounted in there. Just a mock-up motor in there. So you see, I just clear the valve cover on it. As far as hood mounts, temporarily I just have it mocked up. I got to put a chain here so it stops here instead of hitting the top of the dash. Now what I did is I just took some pieces of angle iron and just welded it in place. And for now, just the bolts. I drilled 2 5/16 holes for the bolts. That'll hold the hood in place. Then when the hood's closed up, I'll add spacers in between here so it centers the hood. I've got my steering tower bracket here. I bent that up, and I got the arm fully welded on it, so that's going to be kind of the view. The steering will come out from underneath the mower up to the front here with a Heim. I've got to clearance this better for the tire because I got to pull the wheelbase in on it. But everything's welded up. I just got the dash right. Whoop. Got the dash just sitting there temporarily, just for mock-up. But there, if I can get that straight, there's a final as far as what I've got so far. Then that would be the top. It's like an old Cadillac or an old car with the long scooping hood. Side view of the motor. The exhaust, I'm probably going to come out the side, dump it down. I thought about running equal length into one and then dumping it out right back here, so that way it'll give it a nice deep tone to it, just like my FXT. There's a front view. There's a scooped front view. And there's the side view. That's it for this week. A little more frame bracing to happen. I could order some parts, transmission. I'll get the stuff from my steering, finish that up, move a couple pedals, and probably 2 more videos, and this thing should be done as far as chassis wise, and then I'd just have to start working on the motor. Alright, thanks for watching.